So anyway, that's the way it goes. And Zero, you've been around long enough that I don't feel bad about just springing this on you. We're going to give our last words now. Doesn't matter what it's about. Could be about a story we covered today. Could be about a story that you think about years ago. Zero, I want to thank you very much too. To my British friends, sometimes, and I don't mean the British friends here, but to my British friends, meaning 70% of the people watching us, you're very American, apparently more American than I. But today, you are very British, and for that, I thank you so much, Zero. I would like to have you on as often as possible. You always bring a ray of sunlight into my life. But here we go. Giving you enough time, we're going to go our last wrap-up words. We think of this time as sacred. We like to not talk over anybody in any way while they're delivering their final words, or even comment on those words afterwards. So if that's enough information, Zero, cool. We'll go from you to Common Senseguy to TheBritisher, and then finally, last and definitely, most of all, least, myself.
I really don't have much to say today. Thank you for figuring out how to turn down my microphone. It's actually on my end is perfect, but I understand that everybody might hear me louder, so it's a good thing you tuned it down on your end. Really, the whole thing with the Saudi Arabia bit and the ancient civilization is, with the way the planet changes all the time in regards to when man changes the environment, or the environment shifts doing this and doing that, it really wouldn't surprise me if it's just like ancient Sumerian or something, and then it just got embedded in rock or buried under a sandstorm and that kind of stuff. And it also really wouldn't surprise me if the government over there wants to keep stuff under wraps, because it will, if anything came out about it that they didn't like, it would cause more problems for them than we need, and that it would basically deflate that basic region for its religious context, and then everything would do a 180 to where it is from now. That wouldn't surprise me one so bit.
Thank you so much, Zero Cool. You had all the time that you want, sir, and we hope to have you back soon. And yeah, now that you made it public, it's not that you have a bad voice. You have a very powerful voice. I've been told that, but I can't hold a candle to you, sir. So thank you very much for showing up today. Wonderful last words.
Thank you.
To be honest, I don't really have much to say today. The only thing I'd probably have to say on this point is, you look at the stories that are around us, and Oga's touched on it quite a lot today. So the fact where the news just doesn't sell good news anymore. It's not a case of little Johnny from the Boy Scouts, and that's a whole nother story, but we'll miss that one. But Johnny from the Scouts has decided that he's going to take an old lady across the road and things like that. And not that it should get reported in the national news. I'm not saying that. I'm using it as a very, very bland and obvious point. But those type of things do not get reported anymore. There is no good news in the world anymore. Everything seems to be bad news. Bad news sells. But in actual fact, good news actually always sells better than bad news. Because we all want to feel good about ourselves, and if we see somebody that's doing something good for other people, then we want to do good for other people as well. But if we see bad in the world, we naturally gravitate to going, well, I don't care, everybody else is horrible, why should I give a shit? And I think that's where we're going wrong nowadays. We keep on going down to a point of darkness, rather than actually just trying to reiterate what the actual news is. We're trying to say that this is going to be really bad, this is going to be really bad, and every 2 months there's another, or even worse than that, every 2 weeks there's another disaster that's on the horizon. Donald Trump's going to kill the world by not going to the Paris summit. Theresa May is going to completely destroy Brexit because she's incompetent. Just every now and again, it just seems that there's so many different disasters that are on the horizon. There's nothing ever good about it. Now, I'm not trying to say that these people are good or these people are bad. It's just a case of, in general, there are so many good things that, well, maybe not in Theresa May's case, but in some cases, there are so many people that do good things in the world. And we don't tell their story anymore. We don't tell little Johnny's story anymore. We don't tell the story who's somebody who's got $5,000 out of the bank to decide that they're going to build a boxing gym so they can take people off the streets anymore. We don't do the good stories anymore. We don't follow the charity cases anymore. We give them awards in little back corners of our nation's superheroes and things like that. And we shouldn't be doing that. We should be promoting their stories to show that the people in the world that there is good in the world. Because as soon as you start showing people that there isn't any good, they naturally go down the road as, what's the point? I think I'm going to leave that there.
Okay, well, my final word, I guess I would like to just, to a certain extent it was amusing. It all began with about 2 days ago, I had a bit of a back spasm. And that meant I kind of had to minimize my time in front of the PC, which meant I spent a lot of time lying on the sofa, which invariably means that my Twitter account, my Twitter activity gets somewhat more vivid, which is more than likely something that the ogre has observed in this past 24 hours. And I just had, shortly before I came on, I was having a bit of a ding-dong with the ogre, if only just to entertain myself, because the television is only so and so interesting. But at the same time, I was also having a ding-dong with someone else. And when it came to the ogre, we were talking about various crime statistics and whatever. And when I was talking to this other person, I was talking about free speech, because this person was objecting to Richard Spencer being allowed to speak at some university in Florida. I believe they've had some call for a state of emergency because of it, which is almost a joke in itself. But when it comes to that particular case, this person was clearly arguing that he was doing nothing else but spreading hate, he shouldn't be allowed to speak, and so on. So my questioning that, of course, immediately put me in a bracket as far as that particular person was concerned. So I was quite enjoying myself speaking to both the ogre and to this person, because you see, I was enjoying the delight of a particular aspect, and that was that the ogre knows full well what I'm speaking about here, that he was somewhat jokingly referring to me as an SJW because of my position on crime and guns. Meanwhile, simultaneously, at the very same time, someone else was referring to me as a white supremacist because I was apparently the backer of Richard Spencer. So that was, I therefore I must have been at that particular moment in time, I must be the only person on the planet who was simultaneously an SJW and a white supremacist, which you can imagine I was milking for my own enjoyment for some considerable time, without either party being aware of the other, so to speak. So that may explain one or two things to the ogre. It definitely had me in considerable fits at times, because yes, when you get these messages coming in simultaneously, it can to quote Ken Dodd, it can tickle you. Yes.
Much like a feather duster.
And it definitely did in that particular case. But I just find it remarkable, on perhaps a bit more serious note, how if these days just, how it can be that these days just the act of questioning something can effectively place you in a camp regarding, when it comes to the views of some people. So, I mean, I don't like Richard Spencer, but frankly, I don't think I need to say that. Just the fact that somebody says this person shouldn't be allowed to talk, and then I start engaging that person and start saying, well, why not? Why shouldn't this person be allowed to talk? Then just simply that question in itself to that person meant I'm a sympathizer. And that, I think, is one of those tendencies in today's society, and particularly in the discourse online. And no, I'm not referring to the ogre and myself. We know full well what we mean seriously and what we don't. But when it comes to those sort of things, how is it that people can't even question something? I mean, I had some interesting comments also regarding the week that was, in which some people were really agitated about my commenting on Donald Trump. And they let me know about it. But in their same comment, they then also told me that they agreed with my criticism of Hillary Clinton. And you just think, what is it they can't see? What is it that I can see that they cannot? That I am, in a way, capable of seeing the flaws on both sides, without necessarily wanting to feel superior towards those sides, but just that you can actually see that at times there is true silliness on both sides. But they will, even when they have got both things presented to them side by side, they will nonetheless be completely colorblind on one side and only be able to see the flaws in the other. And I just find that, and at the same time then, this will lead them to conclude that the person who is telling them this must be partisan, because even though he criticized both sides, he criticized their dear leader, and therefore he must be partisan and must be evil. And it is that sort of thinking that I just don't comprehend. At times, I think I've already said this to the ogre once or twice, at times I feel almost a bit autistic. That there's almost as if there is some part of the human experience that I just don't get. Because when it comes to exchanges like that, I simply can't understand them. I don't understand why my simply asking a question should suddenly make me a white supremacist. And I don't understand how my criticizing Hillary Clinton should suddenly make me a misogynist. Or my making a joke about Donald Trump's golf should suddenly render me someone who hates the United States of America and everything she stands for. You know, it's those sort of things where you just think, folks, just relax a bit, why don't you? Anyway, over to you, Mr. Ogre.
Thank you so much, Britisher. It's been a great night, and I'm going to start out not by pressing my brother, as I will when we go offline, to turn on a super chat, but by saying, folks, the British and I, we're kindred spirits. We seem very different to you all. We are very different in a lot of ways, but there's definitely one way we're extremely similar, and that is it's that invisible something that runs up a man's back. It's that intangible thing that forces a man to get up in the morning, even when his back is bothering him. It's that unattainable virtue that real men often strive for. And yes, I'm talking about myself and my friend, the Britisher. I'm unabashedly saying that those things apply to us. And so before I say my last word, we thank you from the bottom of our heart. It's difficult for us, even though we see Tucker Carlson making billions of dollars a year, and I'm sure the Britisher looks at that and says, really? It's like, wow, but I could do that. Sometimes I feel the same way. I could do that. And so before my last word, which is now, we just want to thank you once again. Even if I decide to quit YouTube 5 days ago, as is the rumor. We thank you so much for being here in the beginning, for being a part of this thing. And what is this thing? I'll say a small piece about that. What it is 3 gentlemen coming together. And yeah, sometimes we have Zero Cool with us or some other random person. But what it is really is the Common Senseguy, the Britisher, and the Ogre. Just bringing you a balance of ideas. And it would take me so long. And I'm looking at the clock now. I've got to keep my final words down. I can't let them go and drone on forever and ever. If you want to hear me drone on forever, come and see one of the live streams I do when my co-hosts are here. You'll be able to hear me talk ad nauseum. So to wrap up this first little part is, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Soda Rock, Captain Cole Pile, all that donated tonight. You don't know, you can't know the affirmation that you gave us by doing that. And I don't want to take away from those of you that just say thank you. We really appreciate that. So here you go, my final word. Once in a while, once in a blue moon, it's very rarely you find yourself wondering how it is that you were so unbelievably gifted and fortunate. I don't mean gifted, able to play a Stradivarius and angelic tones. I don't mean gifted and can shoot a basketball from half. I don't mean, I mean gifted as in, I have a beautiful wife. My house here that you see, I mean, look, I got guitars just hanging on my walls. And you know what? Sometimes I find myself, oh, poor me, woe is me. Buck up, little soldier. I can pluck any number of these guitars off the wall and play it, plug it into any number of amps. I can get on my drums and beat them. I can go drive my Mercury. I can go out and walk my property and look at my garden. What is it in man that makes him not want to be content with what he has? That's my question to myself today on my 24th anniversary, being married to the most wonderful human being that God ever created. What would it take for me to be content? Do I blame it on the news that's being bombarded left and right? We talked about that. Is it Tucker Carlson's fault? Is it? Do I blame it on? What do I blame it on? We have contentment within ourselves. We have one person. I'm going to get a little pompous here. I'm being pompous for all of us here, not for me. We have one person to thank if we're content in who we are and what we are, and that's ourselves. I beg you, I implore you. I want you to look inside of yourself and see that beautiful and wonderful thing that is you today. Not what other people want you to be, God forbid. What you want to be. Today, I want each and every one of you listening to me to go out and cuss out that person you want to cuss out. To hold that person you want to hold, to kiss that person you want to kiss, to love that person you want to love. And above all, to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't follow the advice I just gave you. And like I said, I'd like to go on a little longer, but I can see that my 5 minutes is up. Constant viewer, I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, and I will only speak for the Britisher now, but I'll speak for him, and he'll cuss me later if I'm wrong. But you mean more to us than we thought you would. We don't know all of you by name. We couldn't greet 99.9% of you on the street because we noticed your face. That's why I think the love we have for you is so deep. The respect and the admiration. You're an anonymous conglomerate of humanity that appreciates us for what we are. And my last word is, the Britisher, and I, we appreciate you for what you are. And be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. For God's sake, be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has said seems to be so huge you'll never be able to forget about it. Because constant viewers, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, everything you know and hold dear will depart